George Foreman, the two-time heavyweight champion and Olympic gold medalist, once dominated the boxing world with devastating knockouts and an unshakable presence. But today, at 75, his life has shifted dramatically. From financial turmoil to serious allegations and the unavoidable challenges of aging, Foreman's later years tell a far different story. What happened to the once indomitable champion? Let's explore the hardships that shaped his journey outside the ring. George Foreman's early years were steeped in hardship. Born on January 10, 1949, in East Harlem, New York, his family faced relentless financial struggles. His parents, Nancy and J.D. Foreman, did their best to make ends meet. But life was anything but easy. At just 2 years old, George's biological father abandoned the family, leaving Nancy to raise him on her own. His stepfather, J.D., stepped in to provide some stability, but the absence of his real father cast a long shadow. The family eventually moved to Houston's 5th Ward, one of the nation's most crime-ridden neighborhoods, where poverty and violence were constant threats. Living in such harsh conditions had a profound effect on young George. Surrounded by crime and without strong guidance, he found himself drawn into a world of violence. He used his imposing strength to intimidate others, quickly gaining a reputation. By his teenage years, George had become notorious for his fierce temper, participating in gang activities and committing robberies. His future seemed bleak. Yet, through it all, his mother never lost hope. Nancy believed George could break free from the cycle of crime and encouraged him to turn his life around. Despite his anger and frustration, a part of George longed for something more. "I didn't know who I was or what I wanted," he later admitted. "I just knew I was angry at the world." At 16, George stood at a crucial turning point. Realizing that he needed a drastic change, he enrolled in the Job Corps, a federal program designed to help disadvantaged youth learn trades and build better futures. It was a decision that would alter the course of his life. The program sent him to Oregon, where he trained in carpentry and bricklaying. But beyond the skills he learned, it was the structure, discipline, and mentorship that gave George a sense of direction for the first time. He began to see that he was capable of much more than the life he had left behind. It was there that fate intervened. Encouraged to channel his pent-up anger constructively, George tried boxing. He didn't think much of it at first, just a way to blow off steam. But under the guidance of Doc Broadus, a former boxer and Job Corps counselor, George's talent became undeniable. His raw power and relentless aggression made him a force to be reckoned with. Boxing became George's lifeline. The discipline of the sport provided him with focus and determination. Past no longer defined him. As he began winning amateur bouts, his name gained recognition, and his reputation as a powerhouse in the ring grew. Just 2 years after stepping into the ring, George Foreman achieved the unimaginable. He earned a spot on the U.S. Olympic boxing team, representing his country at the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. Despite his relative inexperience, his imposing presence and ferocious style struck fear into his opponents. With every match, George's confidence grew. His opponents crumbled beneath his devastating punches. In the final bout, he faced the formidable Jonas Sepulis from the Soviet Union. George's raw power overwhelmed Sepulis, forcing the referee to stop the fight. Just 19 years old, George Foreman became an Olympic gold medalist. But the moment wasn't just about victory. It was a personal triumph, a declaration that he had conquered the darkness of his past. As he waved the American flag on the podium, the troubled street kid from 5th Ward was gone. In his place stood a champion, a symbol of resilience and transformation. With his gold medal secured, George's boxing journey had only just begun. At 20, he turned professional, determined to make an even greater mark. His transition from Olympic hero to heavyweight sensation was swift and fierce. The boxing world quickly took notice of George's unprecedented power. His fists, like wrecking balls, demolished opponents in the ring. Spectators watched in awe, as Foreman delivered brutal knockouts, solidifying his reputation as one of the most feared punchers in boxing history. His journey was no longer about survival. It was about domination. And the world was watching as George Foreman continued to climb toward legendary status. Within just 2 years of turning professional, George Foreman had amassed an astonishing 25 wins, most by knockout. His reputation for brutal, swift victories established him as a dominant force in the heavyweight division. By 1973, Foreman's record stood at an impeccable 37-0 with 34 knockouts. The boxing world had never seen anything quite like him. Foreman was a physical juggernaut, a towering figure with unparalleled strength and a relentless, punishing style. He overwhelmed opponents with ferocity, his punches landing like sledgehammers. And soon, the opportunity to claim the ultimate prize arrived. On January 22, 1973, Foreman faced the reigning heavyweight champion Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica. Frazier, famously known as Smokin' Joe, had cemented his legacy with a victory over Muhammad Ali in the legendary Fight of the Century just 2 years prior. Many believed Frazier's relentless pressure and durability would be too much for the young challenger. But what unfolded that night shocked the world. The opening bell, Foreman unleashed a storm of devastating blows. His confidence was unshakable, and his raw power left Frazier reeling. In a display of sheer dominance, Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times within just 2 rounds. The referee had no choice but to stop the fight, crowning the 24-year-old Foreman as the new heavyweight champion of the world. The scene was unforgettable. The once indomitable Frazier crumbled under the might of Foreman's punches. At that moment, Foreman wasn't just a champion. He was a force of nature. His victory over Frazier solidified his status as one of the most feared fighters in boxing history. But the heavyweight division had one more test in store. Muhammad Ali. The year was 1974, and the stage was set in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, for one of the most anticipated bouts in boxing history, the Rumble in the Jungle. Foreman, still undefeated and reigning champion, entered the ring as the overwhelming favorite. Ali, though a legend in his own right, had suffered recent losses and was viewed by many as past his prime. Contrast was striking. His sheer power seemed unstoppable, while Ali's agility, wit, and resilience were legendary. Fans braced themselves for an inevitable Foreman knockout, but Ali had other plans. Employing his now iconic rope-a-dope strategy, Ali leaned against the ropes, absorbing Foreman's punches while conserving his own energy. Round after round, Foreman unleashed relentless assaults, convinced his power would break Ali. Commentators were certain the end was near. Yet, as the rounds wore on, it was Foreman who began to tire. His once devastating punches lost their snap, and Ali, ever calculating, saw his moment. In the 8th round, Ali unleashed a lightning-fast combination. A crisp right hand connected cleanly, sending Foreman crashing to the canvas. The seemingly invincible champion was defeated. Muhammad Ali had reclaimed the heavyweight title, and Foreman's aura of dominance was shattered. The loss to Ali wasn't just a professional defeat, it was a psychological blow that rocked Foreman to his core. The man who had once instilled fear in his opponents now faced a battle within himself. Self-doubt crept in, and the confidence that had defined his career began to crumble. Determined to restore his reputation, Foreman continued to fight. The once unstoppable force struggled to reclaim his former dominance. His frustration culminated in a bizarre 1975 exhibition match, where he fought 5 opponents in a single night. What was meant to showcase his toughness turned into a spectacle of exhaustion and disappointment. Rather than proving his resilience, the fight further damaged Foreman's reputation. Fans watched in disbelief as the former champion faltered. He was no longer the same terrifying presence. The downward spiral continued. By 1977, Foreman's desperation for a comeback led him to a pivotal bout against Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico. Poorly prepared and plagued by self-doubt, Foreman entered the ring a shadow of his former self. The grueling heat and his lack of conditioning took their toll, resulting in a sluggish performance. Young outboxed Foreman, and by the end of the fight, it was clear. The former champion had reached a breaking point, but this wasn't merely a defeat in the ring. It marked the beginning of a profound internal struggle. Yet, in the face of adversity, Foreman's story was far from over. What seemed like the fall of a champion would eventually become the foundation for one of the most extraordinary comebacks in sports history. The man who had been broken would soon find redemption, not in the way the world expected. In 1977, George Foreman faced Jimmy Young in a fight that was meant to reignite his career. Young, a crafty and skilled fighter, used his ring intelligence to outmaneuver Foreman. After a grueling bout, Foreman lost by unanimous decision. It was a humbling defeat for the once dominant champion, a man who had been feared and admired for his immense power. But the loss to Young was far more than a career setback. It became the catalyst for one of the most transformative experiences of Foreman's life. Back in the dressing room, physically exhausted and severely dehydrated, Foreman collapsed. His team rushed to his aid, but as the room spun and the air grew thin, Foreman believed he was on the verge of death. In what he would later describe as a near-death experience, Foreman felt his spirit leaving his body, descending into a place of emptiness and despair. It was a terrifying and visceral moment, one that shook him to his core. Amid the overwhelming darkness, Foreman began to pray. It was an unfamiliar act for a man who had spent much of his life chasing material success. But in that moment of desperation, he pleaded for his life. Then he heard a voice, calm, resolute, and unmistakable. "I don't want your money, I want you." Foreman believed he had encountered a divine presence. The experience was so profound that it brought him to tears. He felt a rush of clarity and conviction, a realization that his life had been consumed by ego, anger, and the relentless pursuit of fame. Now, he saw a different path. Just months after his spiritual awakening, Foreman made a shocking announcement. At the age of 28, in the prime of his physical career, he was retiring from boxing. The decision stunned the boxing world. Many believed he could still reclaim the heavyweight title, but for Foreman, the fight that mattered most was no longer in the ring. Determined to live a life of purpose, Foreman embraced his newfound faith. He became a born-again Christian and dedicated himself to ministry. In Houston, Texas, he established the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ, where he preached and served the community. The same fervor and passion that once fueled his boxing career, Foreman now channeled his energy into guiding and uplifting others. The violent, aggressive persona of his boxing days gave way to a gentler, more compassionate man. He spoke to congregations about redemption, resilience, and the power of transformation. For over a decade, Foreman remained largely out of the public eye, choosing instead to focus on his family, his faith, and his mission to help those in need. Foreman's post-retirement life was a testament to the profound changes he had undergone. The man once known for his devastating knockouts was now delivering messages of hope and healing. He provided counseling, supported local charities, and mentored young people facing their own struggles. On were the days of roaring crowds and championship belts. Foreman's victories were now measured in lives touched and spirits uplifted. He no longer needed the validation of the boxing world. His purpose had shifted to something far greater. Yet, even as he devoted himself to his faith, the world had not forgotten George Foreman, the fighter. And unbeknownst to him, another chapter, one of the most remarkable in sports history, was still waiting to be written. Just when the world thought George Foreman's story had reached its conclusion, he stunned everyone by announcing a return to boxing in 1987. At 38 years old, an age when most fighters hang up their gloves, Foreman's decision was met with widespread skepticism. The once chiseled powerhouse now carried a heavier, more mature frame. Critics scoffed, calling his comeback a publicity stunt. But Foreman wasn't chasing fame or validation. His return to the ring wasn't about silencing doubters. It was about proving something to himself. With every fight, he defied expectations. His power remained formidable, and his experience brought a new level of strategic calm. Against all odds, Foreman worked his way back into title contention. Then, in 1994, at the astonishing age of 45, he achieved the unthinkable. Facing Michael Mourn, a skilled and confident champion 19 years his junior, Foreman entered the ring as a significant underdog. For 9 grueling rounds, Mourn dominated, using speed and technique to keep the aging legend at bay. But Foreman, patient and resilient, waited for his moment. In the 10th round, it came. With a thunderous right hand, Foreman sent Mourn crashing to the canvas. The referee's count reached 10, and the world erupted. George Foreman was once again the heavyweight champion of the world, the oldest in history. His victory wasn't just about reclaiming a title. It was a declaration of resilience, a testament to perseverance, and the ultimate proof that the human spirit knows no age limit. Foreman's triumphant return became one of the most inspiring comebacks in the annals of sports history. While his return to boxing brought Foreman back into the spotlight, his most surprising success would come from an entirely different arena: the kitchen. In the mid-1990s, Foreman became the face of the George Foreman grill. Marketed as a healthier way to cook, the grill's appeal soared, becoming a household staple. Foreman's warm, jovial persona as a pitchman resonated with millions. The product's popularity skyrocketed, selling over 100 million units and generating a financial windfall that far exceeded anything Foreman had earned in the ring. For younger generations, Foreman was no longer just the fighter who took down Joe Frazier and challenged Muhammad Ali. He was the friendly, smiling face behind a grill that knocked out the fat. The success of the grill cemented his status as a cultural icon, redefining his legacy in a way no one could have predicted. Beyond the financial rewards, the grill symbolized something more: Foreman's ability to reinvent himself. He proved that success could come not just from strength and endurance, but from adaptability and vision. Away from the spotlight, Foreman's personal life has been as complex as his career. He has been married 5 times and has 12 children. In a unique display of legacy and pride, all 5 of his sons were named George, a decision he made to ensure the Foreman name would endure for generations. While fame and fortune surrounded him, Foreman sought stability and purpose through his family and faith. After his spiritual awakening in the 1970s, he dedicated years to preaching and leading his congregation. His devotion to his Christian beliefs remained a central pillar of his life, guiding him through the highs and lows. However, Foreman's later years have not been without controversy. In recent years, he has faced serious allegations of sexual abuse from 2 women who claimed the incidents occurred in the 1970s when they were minors. Foreman has denied the allegations, calling them attempts at extortion. The accusations cast a dark shadow over his otherwise celebrated legacy. The legal battle continues, serving as a reminder that even the most revered figures are not immune to scrutiny. Despite the personal and legal challenges, Foreman remains steadfast. His journey has taught him resilience, and he continues to navigate life with the same determination that once propelled him to boxing glory. George Foreman's life is a testament to the power of transformation. From the ferocious knockout artist who dominated the heavyweight division, to the preacher who found redemption through faith, to the businessman whose name became synonymous with innovation. Foreman's story is one of constant evolution. His 1994 championship victory stands as one of the greatest comebacks in sports, a symbol of resilience against all odds. Meanwhile, the George Foreman grill turned him into a beloved cultural icon, proving that success has no single path. But perhaps Foreman's greatest triumph is the example he has set, showing the world that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to reclaim one's narrative. His life remains a reminder that even in the face of defeat, redemption is always within reach. At 75, George Foreman continues to reflect on the remarkable journey that brought him here. His name will forever be etched in the annals of boxing history, but his legacy transcends titles and trophies. It is a legacy of perseverance, transformation, and the enduring belief that no setback is final.